Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass Borough of Brooklyn, New York.
No gold plated sign, name marble pillar room. One thing I want.
Okay, Season 2, Episode 7. I'm Mike Wilner.
And I'm Liz Wolfe.
And welcome again to our Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. Today, we explore the theme of homegrown, locally known, some of our favorite local musicians that we get to play in jam circles and watch gig around town.
And these are some excellent musicians that we love to hang around with, and you will see out at jams quite a bit.
That's right. And just emphasizing the melting pot nature of New York City, all three of our homegrown, locally known favorites. One lives in New Jersey, another originated from Tennessee, and the third is here on sabbatical from Iowa. So that's what New York's all about, right, Liz?
That's right.
Also, we're going to drop in on a jam and talk to some of the participants and listen to some tunes. Today is Sheriff Bob's Good Time Jam. Should be a lot of fun. So, Liz, you got anything coming up?
Yeah, well, big announcement. We have determined the date for Jam Jersey 2026, which is March 20th through 22nd. And so what we're doing right now is collecting early bird interest. You can go to bluegrassjamsnearme.com/Jam Jersey and fill out the form to ensure that you get a hotel and that you get all the early bird notifications and all that. So that is something I'm very excited about.
Awesome. Check the program notes for some more details. But we did an episode on Jam Jersey, and if you want to hear how much fun that was, you could listen to that episode. We encourage you to make it next year. We'd love to meet you there. Also, let's not forget, June 21st, Saturday, it is Porch Stomp, right?
Cannot wait for that.
Yeah, that's one of the big New York folk festivals. It's entirely free. Come on out to Governor's Island. Make sure you drop by stage number 6, the Bluegrass Brooklyn stage. We'll be there making music, doing podcasting, hanging out. So we look forward to meeting you there as well.
Yes, and I also want to make sure people know that there is jamming on the island at the same time, starting at 11 in Fort J, which is basically the middle of the island. Mm-hmm. Our friends Trevor and Conchi will be hosting a jam. And then, of course, the Sonny's Jam happens as well. I believe that's later in the afternoon. So if you're thinking about bringing your instrument, you should do that because you don't want to be caught without it and want to jam.
And we encourage you to follow us on Instagram at Bluegrass Brooklyn. Brooklyn is spelled BKLYN. On the web, you can find us at bluegrassbrooklyn.com. And Liz, where do we find your Jampire online?
You go to bluegrassjamsnearme.com, where we are always posting new jams that are happening, and we would love to play with you, so come on out.
Yep, come on out. So let's get this episode started.
Big ball in Brooklyn, big ball in town, big ball in Brooklyn, we'll dance around.
Hello, Roger. Thanks for coming on Bluegrass Brooklyn.
My pleasure. I listen to it all the time.
We met because we were both jamming in Brooklyn, and I particularly like hanging out with you at jams because you're a big singer. The first thing we want to know is what's your connection to the bluegrass scene in Brooklyn?
My connection is really just having stumbled onto it. My older brother, who lives in Brooklyn, who's brewmaster of Brooklyn Brewing Company, we were taking friends from England out and showing them around and trying to give them a real blast of New York. So we took them to Birdland Theater and then over to Jimmy's Corner, the diviest dive bar you ever want to stick your head in. And then we went to the barbecue place that's over near Sonny's. And then we went to Sonny's. It was my first time at Sonny's. And I walked in, it was a Saturday night and the jam was happening. And I was just instantly, oh my God, I need to be doing this. And very next week, I was there, and I've been there ever since, going on 3 years.
For the listeners that don't know, of course, Sonny's is a bar in Red Hook that has been open for many years and had a bluegrass jam going there. And they do that in the winter on Saturday nights. Starts at 8?
It starts at 8 and goes till closing. And then in the summer, it is an outdoor thing on Sunday afternoons from 3 to 7, which is over 20 20 years running.
So Sundays is one very iconic bluegrass jam. But don't you live in New Jersey?
I do live in New Jersey, so I do a lot of driving. I consider all of these places to be in my backyard. And I'm in Brooklyn all the time, whether it's Sunny's and over at Jalopy, over at Prospect Bar and Grill, and other spots. My philosophy is I've got the car. Why would I not put myself where I actually want to be?
Well, I do want to say I also have a car and I would have the same attitude, but the big difference between me and you is you have a parking spot when you get back to your house.
That's true.
And of course, you've come to some of our jams on the West Side too. And I always
Yeah, that's
appreciate that.
right.
Now,
I have.
one of the reasons I always appreciate when Roger shows up is because he's a singer. And of course, everybody knows because I say it all the time, I'm a singer. I love that. So what draws you to singing? I mean, you're also a good guitar player, but just tell us a little bit more about that.
I intend to learn to take breaks and do solos. It's never been my focus over the years. But when you're in a community as robust as this, and you've got so many potential teachers, I mean, how can you not, right? And you don't want to pass on your turn when it comes around like all the time. That is definitely the catalyst for getting started. I had a lesson with Chris Lucat. I've got a lesson with Michael Davies coming up. But singing is something that has just been in my blood since I was little. And I learned to play guitar really just so that I could sing. So I didn't have to have anybody else do accompaniment for me. My mom learned to play folk guitar when I was little, and so my first stuff came from her. And then all the kids I went to school with, tons of musicians, so I learned all the bar chords from them, and then I just was up and running with it. I played in rock and roll bands. I had a band in Boston. And then after that, I put the electric stuff down and just started focusing more on playing acoustic. I have a handful of true bluegrass songs, but when you add country and blues and all the other things that fit within that genre of Americana, that's something that has just been a part of my life. Some people may know this, but CBGB's famous rock venue on the Lower East Side, known for its punk bands and Ramones and Television and Blondie and all that. The BG in CBGB's is for bluegrass.
What? I had no idea.
Yes, it's country, bluegrass, and blues, CBGB.
Wow. Do you have a good jam anecdote for us?
You and I've had the opportunity to lock into some great three-part harmonies. And one of my favorite things is harmony singing. One of the real attractions to bluegrass and country in general is that it is a three-part harmony genre. I think my favorite experiences in this community have really been late nights at Sunny's over the years, where the number of musicians, there may be 20 people or more to start with. And as it got later, it would pare down and pare down and pare down. And maybe there's only 5 of us. So that's some really magical stuff.
That's the beauty of late night jams and what I'm always trying to convince my husband why I always want to stay up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. When it gets small is when it really lights up. One of my other favorite things is I want to hear people's songs that they almost know. The songs you love and you sort of know, I love hearing people play that stuff. And sometimes whatever lyrics they don't know, maybe you know that piece and you can fill it in and make it whole.
Sometimes when people call songs at jams and I nix them, I'll say, no, that's the song you're going to do at 2 a.m. As a matter of fact, at Jam Jersey, somebody told me that one of their favorite jams was a jam where they played songs that you can't really call in jams. They called it a jam buster jam.
Oh, jam busters for sure, yeah.
So speaking of that and being a jammer and coming into a jam you're not familiar with, of course, it's always a little bit intimidating when you come into a jam for the first time and maybe you don't know anyone or you're newish to jamming. Do you have any tips that have helped you to being able to join in a jam?
For me, I'm not a shy person, so I have no problem coming in and starting. I would say that if you are a little on the shy side, you want to have at least 1 or 2 songs that you know cold, that you're not going to get flustered, you're not going to lose your place, something that's in your bones. And at the end of the day, that's the song that people are going to want to hear anyway, something that that you are moved by. And that's what's going to move other people. Just know that song inside out, know the lyrics inside out, be prepared to tell people this is what the song is, this is what key it's in, and be able to start that thing and drive it. Be prepared to drive that song as opposed to starting and expecting the room to carry you. You have to carry the room. And so if you have one or two things that you can play really confidently, I think that's what it's all about.
Yes, I 100%. And I also want to remind the listeners, it's okay to do the same song. Every single time you go to a jam, you could do the same song. When I first was starting to jam, I was like, oh, I have to learn all these songs. And then I went to enough jams. It was like, wait, everybody's just doing the same song. Oh, yes. Bob's going to do Barroom Blues or whatever it is. It's fun to learn new songs.
It is fun. It is also fun to have signature songs.
Well, this has been really great to chat with you, Roger. Thanks so much for coming on. You're certainly a very steadfast member of the bluegrass community in Brooklyn and a really awesome contributor to the music. I know anytime I see you there, I'm like, oh, good, I get to sing. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. I'm always down for this.
Thanks so much.
You bet.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we all subside.
Okay, so here we are with Zach Williams. Zach, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we start, I detect a slight accent there. What is that, Bronx? Westchester?
Bronx, yeah. I like to say that it's really, really South Brooklyn. If you just keep going south from Brooklyn, eventually you'll run into my old home place. I'm originally from Tennessee, a small town, Bethpage. If you look it up in Wikipedia, it says Bethpage, Tennessee. They've got a post office, and then the Wikipedia article just kind of stops. That's all we got going for us.
How is it you made your way to Brooklyn, New York from Bethpage, Tennessee?
Oh, a series of bad choices. I was in Tennessee. I got involved with church music pretty heavily, but ended up going to Montana to start a church. I moved there in January, which is an awful time to move to Montana. Very cold and continued to be cold the entire time I was there. Got to play all over the place, and Montana was really the first place that I got involved in bluegrass music. Though I was raised on it in Tennessee, I very much rebelled against that while there. Went from Montana to Arizona, back up to Montana, to Pennsylvania briefly, Lubbock, Texas for a while, and then I ended up here about 7 or 8 years ago after a lengthy search for an apartment in other places. I was looking for short-term, month-to-month, because this was only ever supposed to be a few months that I was in New York, but here we are nearing a decade later, and it's got its hold on me.
You see, you were a Brooklynite all along.
Exactly. It's deep in my bones.
How is it you got involved with the bluegrass scene, and describe what you found here?
My initial foray into bluegrass was with the Montana Rockies Bluegrass Association.
Right.
Met a lot of good players, and I was trying to figure out what even bluegrass was. I was having fun singing loud and trying to get better at my instrument. And then once we left Montana, and that's when bluegrass really became something more important to me, because every place that I've lived, no matter where I go, I can show up to some bluegrass jam that's happening with a guitar and be welcomed with open arms. And then you've got a built-in community of a dozen, 2 dozen people that regularly show up to jams. And we were moving to all these different locations every 3 to 6 months. So I would find my group of people and then immediately have to leave them. When I moved to New York City, I've played more bluegrass here than I've played anywhere else. And the caliber of musicians in New York City is such where I was no longer the big fish in the little pond. It was, I have to work. These guys are good and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I always think you need to surround yourself with people that are better than you, and that's really easy to do
Yes.
in New York City. I think I got plugged into the scene. There was a website that would list all of the jams, all of the concerts, all of the everything. So I'm pretty sure one of my first ones was either the Sonny's Jam or Sheriff Bob's Jam. And I just waltzed right in thinking that New York City was the same as all other places I had been, and thrust myself into the middle of it. And now they can't get rid of me.
Any particular point of contrast stick out to you from what you found when you got here and what you see today?
New York is such a transient place where you can show up to a jam in other locations and you know the exact same 12 people that have been going to that jam for years. But New York City, it's always changing, always evolving. There's always somebody new. There's always new songs. I was talking about this with somebody recently, and maybe we just take it for granted actually being in New York. But people actively want to come to New York to play music, but we get to do it every night of the week.
Yeah.
That's really the thing that I see most with New York is it's always changing. Of course, there's some holdouts that are always here, but it's like a breath of fresh air every time you go to a jam because you don't know what you're going to get into.
Interesting. Let's focus a little bit on your musical career as a band leader of the West Side Cowboys. How did that get started?
We talk about jams a lot. And everybody loves jams. They're a great starting off point. They're a great place to meet people. And I think the natural progression from jams is to meet people at those jams that you really sync with musically. So I met Paul and Donovan and Tess through a series of jams, mostly at the Astoria Irish Whiskey Bar Jam. And it was just like, hey, let's get together and start playing and just see what happens. I think we first met in my dining room, just standing around it playing, and we didn't have anything lined up, but we were having fun playing.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes across in some of our gigs where we just want to have fun. And if we're having fun, hopefully everybody else will also have fun. The name, the West Side Cowboys, came up with that because while I was living in Arizona, while I was living in Texas, I was a cowboy reenactor. Oh. So I would do 1880s cowboy reenacting, and I would do trick roping, quick draw, gun spinning, fast action shooting, some lassoing, basically the circus arts of the Western world. While in Arizona, I got hooked up with a guy, Dr. Buck. He was the cowboy stuntman of all of these Wild Western movies. He put on the Wild Western Festival for so long. I would play music at these festivals. So cowboying in the Southwest has always been in my blood. But once I moved to New York, turns out a lot of the cowboys in the Southwest were born on the East Coast before they moved. So there's a pretty rich history of cowboys in New York. The West Side Cowboys are a historical feature, maybe, of New York City. The High Line on the West Side used to be a street-level freight car that would travel from upstate to Manhattan. At the turn of the century, train travel was so new and the laws of the road were foreign. So people kept getting run over by this train. The government of New York City said, we know how to fix this. We'll hire cowboys to ride in front of the freight trains, waving a flag saying, hey, get out of the way. A train's coming. And that was the case from about 1840-ish to 1940. So almost 100 years of these freight trains. All of the other subway trains started going underground, but instead they elevated the train on the west side, raised it up. That's now the High Line. But so many people were killed, they said it was the West Side Cowboys of Death Avenue. People just kept getting hit by trains. And I said, if that's not a bluegrass song, I don't know what one is.
You got it all.
Yeah.
You got death, you got trains. To the listeners, if you haven't seen West Side Cowboys, just Google them, go see them. It is a fun show. But it's not pure bluegrass. It's all kinds of stuff. So tell me what informs the band's repertoire.
We started out purely bluegrass, and that's what we wanted to do. But I guess post-COVID, something has gone on in the country / honky tonk world, and everything has blown up. It feels like there's a new honky tonk that pops up every day. And some of the bars in Manhattan want loud, ruckus music to go along with it, which bluegrass can obviously be drunk and ruckus, but the loud part, not so much.
Yeah.
So we started doing some honky-tonk gigs, and that's also really fun, and it's really American music where we're taking the melting pot that existed at the time and trying to come up with something that's our own. How do we pick our songs? There's an unwritten rule where as long as one of us knows the song, we'll try it.
Sure.
As long as one of us in the group can figure it out from beginning to end and kind of lead us, then we'll do our best, and that kind of keeps the spontaneity up. That keeps it fun for us. We're pretty good at listening to each other, and we've played with each other for so long that we can really speak a musical language where, you know, somebody will look and give a side eye, and I know that means the four's coming. Or we can feel things are coming based on how we're singing, and we're able to listen to each other, which is something that you can't get in jams. The small hangs are so much better once you've progressed through the jams and you meet people and you find your community. It's easy to have that much fun and keeps us on our toes. We don't get stale.
You guys take requests to shows too.
We try our best. We try to get close. I play for an organization called Musicians on Call, and they do bedside concerts. They're all over the country. Whoever's listening, if you want to play music in hospitals, great organization. I'm going to shout them out for sure.
Definitely.
But they do bedside concerts. We go around room to room, standing next to somebody's bed while they're at a pretty difficult time in their life. So we chit chat for a bit, and then I'm like, what's your favorite song? What do you want to hear? And if I can't get the song, maybe I can get the artist. If I can't get the artist, maybe I can get somebody that sounds pretty close to the artist or the genre, or we can figure something out and be able to connect musically instead of me just singing at somebody. It's like, well, we can sing together and we form a little community just right there in the hospital.
Very cool.
Same way with our shows, we form a little community with the people that are listening where it's like, no, we're going to figure something out and we're going to have fun and we're going to be in this together for the next couple of minutes.
So, Zach, what's your favorite thing about jamming?
The longer I do bluegrass, the more I realize that everyone is trying to do their best. Nobody shows up to a jam and says, I'm about to ruin this. I'm about to play the worst song I've ever done in my life. Everybody's practiced. Everybody's trying to bring their best to deliver something. And I think that's what's so beautiful about bluegrass music, where everyone is on a different spot in their journey, on their instrument, learning. They could be a beginner, or we could be playing with some of the best touring professional musicians you've ever played with. But once you all get there, we're all just trying to play some music and have fun. And it's nice to see how everyone's brains works differently. Everyone learns songs differently. Everyone learns solos differently. I really just think it's so fun to get in everybody's minds. And I love just being together and no gatekeeping. We're all just going to make music.
Okay, so we've been talking with Zach Williams, mandolinist, guitarist, dobroist, and you guys don't see it, but I see the fiddle hanging on his wall. So we're going to make sure we hear him playing fiddle as well at some point. And also band leader of the West Side Cowboys and a bunch of other stuff that we found out. Zach, thanks for taking time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun.
Hello, Donna.
Good morning, Liz.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here and talk about bluegrass and jamming.
So, you are a Brooklynite, but you're a relatively recent transplant to Brooklyn. So, tell us about your journey of how you got here.
This past summer, my husband and I moved to Brooklyn from Iowa. We live on a farm in Iowa to be nannies for our 1-year-old granddaughter. And immediately when I get settled into a new location or even traveling, I start searching out bluegrass jams in my area. The fact that you are creating a website called Bluegrass Jams Near Me is very exciting because sometimes I find it challenging to find bluegrass jams where I'm at.
Yes, that is the purpose of the Bluegrass Jams Near Me website. Right now, it's really only New York City jams. But yeah, we want to be able to find jams everywhere we go in the world. So how did you find the jams in Brooklyn?
Well, I did like everyone. I went to the internet, found a few, And once I find a jam, then I talk to my fellow jammers and say, hey, I'm new to the area. I'm looking for bluegrass jams. And everyone's always so helpful and saying, yeah, you might like the one on Friday night at such and such place. So once you start meeting other bluegrass jammers, everyone's really helpful in guiding you and helping with that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great tip for anybody who's newer to jamming or somebody who's going to another city. What inspired me to start the Bluegrass Jams Near Me website, I went to Nashville and I could only find one jam. And that just seems crazy to me. How do you go to Nashville and you can only find one jam?
And that's kind of interesting because I thought in New York City being such a huge city that there would just be jams anywhere. And I had to search them out and find where I fit in.
That's another aspect that you bring up, which is that, do I fit in this jam? There are certainly different flavors of jam. And of course, that's how we met. You came to one of my jams.
That's right. And that's the wonderful thing about the bluegrass community is that really is how you meet people, make friends. I love the bluegrass community and the jamming aspect of it.
So there you were in Iowa, and then you found out and your daughter had a baby, and then she said, hey, Mom and Dad, can you come? So what's happening on the farm right now? Do you have this farm, but you're not there?
Well, it's a very small farm. It's lovely and peaceful and quiet. We have a big garden, but we have no livestock or row crops. So we are fortunate in that we can just lock the doors and leave. It's a lovely place, but we're enjoying our time in Brooklyn. This is exciting. I mean, who would have ever thought I would get to live in New York City in Brooklyn for a year or so?
So I was very fortunate to be invited by you to sing with you on a song that you wrote. It's called Brooklyn Smells Like Oregon. So tell us a little bit about that song.
Oh my. So prior to coming to Brooklyn, we decided to have an adventure because life is short and you just need to do things. So we moved to Salem, Oregon, which is in the middle of the state, and marijuana is legal in Oregon. It is not legal in Iowa. So I would go out for walks. I would be like, what is that smell? Oh, it smells like pot. Anyway, that was surprising. We moved back to Iowa for a year or so, and then we found out we were moving to Brooklyn. How I get to know my community is I just go out for walks, and I'm like, I smelled pot again. So this phrase popped into my head. Oh my goodness, Brooklyn smells like Oregon. And I said, well, that sounds like a song. Then, of course, it did become a song. Then I was so excited. I'm like, I want to record it. So I asked you to play guitar and sing harmony on it. And I think it sounds really good. I put it up on the internet. I perform under the name Wanted Gal, WANTED, Gal, GAL. So I have a YouTube channel and the song is on there.
WantedGalmusic.com. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We haven't even mentioned this yet, but Donna plays the banjo quite well, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Here's the thing. You want to pursue these musical ideas you have. I mean, we're joking. Will it go viral? Probably not. But, it was a valuable musical learning experience. And now you've done it. You have it out there. I think there's so many ways in life in which we stop ourselves from following through on some project because we're undervaluing the value of just doing it to begin with and the learning process and then the growth that's involved with that. And then you have a really cool song on the internet called Brooklyn Smells Like Oregon. And are you also working on another album or something?
Well, yes. So I released my debut CD in January, and the title of it is Wanted Gal, Alcohol and Wild Women. And it's a combination of originals and covers of bluegrass songs that I love. It turned out really well. I'm proud of it. I decided to make it sound, this was intentional, make it sound like recordings from the 40s, like Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys did, where you're around a single mic. So it sounds very acoustic, very live. It has just a really authentic sound. Dolly Parton, St. Dolly, she has this phrase that just stuck with me. When I start having doubts, I say to myself, thanks to Dolly, my desire is greater than my fear. And it's just opened a whole new world of joy and fun
So I do have some curiosity about jamming in Iowa, jamming in Oregon, jamming in any other place that you've been to. Is there anything particular about Iowa or Oregon? Are there any song that they always play there or something that's, if I were to go to Oregon and say, I'm going to jam, I'm going to call this song because everybody knows it?
There is a kind of standard jamming repertoire, as you know. So when I go to a new jam, I do something that's I feel is going to be very familiar. And usually that works out fine. But each part of the country has more familiar songs that they do. So if I don't know the song, what I do is I just try to listen the first few times around, try to make sure I have a grasp of the chord progression before I start playing. So I think listening is really important. I also try to play really quietly while other people are taking their breaks or they're singing. But I try to call songs that are standard bluegrass songs or easy songs with 2 or 3 chords.
Interesting that you say you try to play quietly because you do play the banjo. So sometimes it's a little hard to play the banjo a little bit quieter.
And that's another reason I like to call songs that are familiar, because I love it when I'm doing a song and everyone's singing and smiling and playing along. It makes me so happy that everyone is having fun.
And speaking of having fun at jams, do you have any jam anecdotes for us?
Well, my funniest one is when I first started jamming. I was so scared, Liz. I was literally shaking. I was terrified, but I knew I needed to do that. And I wanted to start jamming. But I was sitting next to this very nice, kind dobro player named Jerry. And he could tell I was nervous. He's like, girl, you're so nervous. You're making me nervous. Just calm down. And so everyone's nervous at their first jam. And now Jerry and I laugh about that moment when I see him. But once you get into it and start doing it, you realize how much fun it is and how much joy it brings. And I love playing the banjo. Yes, that's one of my favorite.
It's showing up and just doing songs. So you're staying in the Brooklyn area until June. So you're a Brooklynite until then. What's the next adventure for you after that?
Well, we're going to go back to Iowa, get our farm up and running again. And I am going to keep writing songs and playing the banjo. I was in some bands or ensembles when I was in Iowa. I just want to keep making music and improving and having fun with it.
Well, thank you so much. WantedGalMusic.com.
That's right.
You can listen to Donna. And the good news is that your daughter's still going to be in Brooklyn, and surely you will want to come back to visit your grandchild. So
absolutely.
It's not the end of jamming with you.
That's right.
Right. In fact, you should plan her for Jam Jersey 2026.
That's so funny you say that, because I just said to my husband this morning, I'm probably going to want to come back to Jam Jersey so we can visit the baby, visit the daughter, and go to Jam Jersey.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here. And thank you to all the listeners. You can, as we said, find Donna online at wantedgalmusic.com, and also just see her around the Jam Circle in Brooklyn and sometimes in Manhattan.
Thanks, Liz. This has been great.
In the summer of 24, I moved from west to east.
Welcome to another edition of Jam Drop In, where we visit jams around New York City, listen to some tunes, talk to some of the participants. Tonight, we are at the Sheriff Bob's Good Time Jam at the Gray Mare on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. It's the first Tuesday of every month, and it is one of the most iconic jams in the city of New York, long-running, hosted by the inimitable Sheriff Bob. So let's have a listen. So we're here with David at the Sheriff Bob's Good Time Jam. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great.
I gotta say, you're one of the first people I've seen who's walked into a jam and just sang. That's very cool.
Must be all those Elvis Presley movies I've seen.
That's right. I just show up. I don't need a guitar. I don't need anything. I'm just here. But you sang a great song, King of the Road. Thanks for that.
I appreciate it.
How long you been singing in this kind of environment?
Well, I'm from Brooklyn originally.
All right.
And I've been singing most of my adult life. So I'm just used to showing up to jams. Not this one, but I'm just used to showing up and doing my thing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You make the jam circuit in Brooklyn, but not bluegrass? What are you doing then?
Oh, mostly jazz, but I have been known to just improv whenever I see a bluegrass thing going on. I'm very familiar with country and jazz and other genres as well. I write as well.
Oh, okay. So you write your originals.
Yes, I do.
What's your favorite song to call at a bluegrass jam?
Wow. As a bluegrass, probably Hey Good Lookin'.
That's a good one.
You know?
Uncle Hank.
Yeah, Hank Williams. A lot of people say that my original stuff sounds a lot like Hank.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm proud of that, actually.
If I had to ask you to pick 4 vocalists for your Mount Rushmore of vocalists, and let's keep it to bluegrass and country since this is Bluegrass Brooklyn, what 4 vocalists would you choose?
I'd say Ray Price.
Yes.
Hank.
Of course.
Merle.
Yes.
And should I get more modern?
Whatever you like, just got to be 4.
Would Millsap be not modern enough?
No, that's fine.
Millsap.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's always
And
interesting.
I also like, you wanted
4. There's never 4. Go ahead, take a 5th.
Dan Seals.
Okay. Very good. Do you record? Are you online musically or anything like that?
Yes, I am actually.
Where can everyone find you?
You could find me on Instagram under the David McKay. That's TheDavidMckay, and on Bandcamp, where I actually cover King of the Road. That's David McKay at bandcamp.com.
So here we are with John Vitale. John, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks for taking a minute out of the jam. We're at the Good Time Jam here with Sheriff Bob. So, first of all, how long have you been playing banjo?
About 8 years. So I've read that it takes 7 years to become a shitty banjo player, so I'm like a little better than shitty right now.
Working your way up from crappy to pretty bad, huh?
Yes.
I wouldn't agree with that necessarily. I'm pretty impressed with your playing. But more than that, you're singing. Tell me a little bit about how you developed your singing.
I took a singing lesson from Michael Daves. At first, I didn't realize that I could sing high, but he made me listen to Del McCoury singing High on a Mountain.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do that. And he said, yeah, I think you can. And so I pushed myself, and so I've been pushing myself ever since to do that high, lonesome kind of sound.
You nail it, man. Let me tell you. Do you have a singing partner? Because we've had you come down to Delia's Lounge and do a featured performance there. Do you have a regular singing partner?
Well, I'm in a band called The Lake Effect, and we're going to be at Porch Stomp, yeah. And a friend of mine, Dan Robbins, who's in Lake Effect, we do duets together because we both took classes with Michael Dave. So we do a lot of brother duets, which is kind of fun.
Yep. What John is referencing is this June 21st, Porch Stomp will be taking place on Governor's Island, and Bluegrass Brooklyn will be hosting a stage, and Lake Effect will be one of the bands on there. That's awesome. So tell me, what's your favorite song to call in the jam?
Well, I just did Banks of the Ohio, which was fun. I like On Blue I'm Lonesome. I think it's a lot of fun. I like it when I can get those high notes, but sometimes I don't get them perfectly.
I have to admit, sometimes you pull stuff out of your pocket, like these Stanley Brothers songs, which I thought I knew the repertoire, man. It's like John's coming out with another song I don't know, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like really sad songs.
How long have you been coming to the Sheriff's Good Time Jam here?
Well, I started going to the Sheriff's Jam when he was at Zinc Bar, which was pre-pandemic, and I was really a novice then, so I just kind of watched, and every once in a while I'd do a song. But this one here, I've been coming for as long as he's been having it, so like a few years.
Awesome. All right, so thank you very much for taking time with us, John. we are with Ed Robbins. Ed, thanks for taking a minute.
Thanks so much.
We see him regularly down at our Bluegrass by the Bridge Jam at Delia's Lounge.
Absolutely, great place.
Yep, we love it. And also clearly at the Sheriff's Good Time Jam. How long have you been coming here?
I've been coming here roughly a year. Usually I stick to Brooklyn, but the musicians here are just a notch above.
So how long have you been playing guitar and singing?
So I started when I was a teenager finger picking, mostly Mississippi John Hurt and old blues. And that was the style. And played in college, played a little after college, and then just for work reasons had to drop it for decades and decades. They picked it up. New York was not a blues scene, it was a bluegrass scene, and I had to learn how to use a pick about 3 years ago.
How long have you been into bluegrass?
Bluegrass, actually, except for the really classics like Bill Monroe and the Bluebird Brothers, the real classic people, I really learned by playing with people here, by riding my bike by the Gowanus Canal and seeing a bunch of people playing music, and I had to learn how to play that style of music.
Well, you have a hell of a voice, Ed. Where did you learn how to sing?
You know, I really couldn't sing very well until a couple of years ago. I found I could actually sing. I saw an old bandmate of mine, and she was shocked that I had a tremolo in my voice.
That's amazing, actually, developing a voice like that. You play in a band, right?
I play in a couple of bands, some people I've been playing with for several years. That's more eclectic stuff, some originals and some old traditionals, and then some rearranged sort of singer-songwriter things into the style. And then in these jams, my best instrument is actually my harmonica. That I never quite gave up fully because it's easy to put in your pocket and just pull out.
So we have proof. So before we go, you are performing at Porch Stomp this year, aren't you?
I am. There's this big, tall guy. I don't know. He carries around a violin. He doesn't aim it at me very often, but he's dangerous. But he invited me to partake of his stage at Porch Stomp.
That's right. The Bluegrass Brooklyn stage at Porch Stomp this year. Well, we'll hopefully get a chance to play and sing with you there.
Absolutely.
All right, back to work, Ed. Get back to the jam.
Well, that is great. It's just wonderful to hear the insights from the musicians that play in Brooklyn, people that we call our friends, the community that we've built. As far as the jams go, I love going to Sheriff Bob's Jam, and we are looking forward to doing more jam drop-ins at the very many jams in New York City.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about doing a jam crawl, hit as many jams in a borough as we can. So that might be fun. Next episode, folks, we're going to go on the road again down to lovely Cumberland, Maryland, where we visited Delfest. We went to the Delfest Academy, and we're going to have a lot of fun telling you all about that.
Hope to see everybody on our episode next time about Delfest. And meanwhile, come and play with us and see you around the jam circle.